Welcome to In the Margins, where we spark connection through stories. I'm your host, Laura Lynn Donahue, and each week I invite guests to step outside the lines and into the margins with me. You'll hear the untold stories, the stories of risk and reward, of triumph and trial, and everything in between. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Today on In the Margins, I'm joined by Kim Orendor, an award-winning author and journalist. Her second book, To Whom It May Concern, won the 2024 Next Gen Indie Gold Medal for Young Adult Fiction. In addition to writing books, Kim has more than 20 years of experience as a journalist, including teaching journalism 5 years in Central China. She now makes her home in Northern California. Kim, I'm so excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. And I like to say we want to step outside the lines and into the margins and tell the untold stories, or the stories that you want to be heard extra loudly. So I think if you don't mind, if you have anything that you just right off the bat want to share with listeners, well, are you feeling good? Are things going well right now?
Yeah, I think as a writer, I'm in that odd little spot where I've just finished editing my last book. So, that's just like days and days and days of reading and paying attention. And as a writer, that is almost the antithesis of what I like. I like to just sit and make up stories and type and just go and not worry. Is that I before E except after C? Yeah, those kind of things. So since I just finished doing that, I've spent the time reading anything and everything but what I've written and just sort of like kind of try to let my brain have a little fun. It's kind of like what I do, like, find some really good books and just enjoy it and just like for brain candy.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that. It's hard for me when I'm typing in, my manuscript to not criticize the grammar while I'm writing. And it's kind of hard to shut that part of my brain off, but I've been practicing.
It's really true. Like, because I think part of it too is as a journalist, I learned kind of shorthand for interviews and things like that. So I was used to just, kind of like scribbling my own little notes and paying attention and then just typing as fast as I could hit deadline and then go back and check. But, I've been taking typing classes, like I'm old. So when I was in school, we had typing classes. And so it's, I have learned what that feels like. And you can tell, like, oh, shoot, I just hit the wrong key. And it kind of like slows you up and you have to like stop, back up And so it's kind of a little bit, it does throw you off a little bit. But then if I'm really in the zone, I'm able to kind of ignore that and just move on.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in any type of struggle or triumph, a win or a valley that you would want to share with the listeners.
Yeah. I think, I've been thinking about that. And it's as a writer, like I enjoy telling stories, but there have been a lot of times when I haven't felt that my writing is really strong or that the story really counts. Even though in my head and in my heart, I'm like, oh, this is a really good story. I tend to listen to that nagging doubt. And way back in the day, I had written at the time, it was going to be a short story. And a friend of mine was going to a writers conference and she said, hey, come with me. And they had it set up so that you could actually meet editors and they could look at they would read a chapter or two of what you had and they could give you feedback. This would be good. Now, granted, after I'm coming out of all my journalism where I've got awards from the state and from, across the country from all this, so I'm thinking, I got this, and writing books is very different than being a journalist.
Yeah.
And I learned that kind of the hard way. But what happened at this conference was there were two different editors from different publishing houses.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one looked at the story and loved it, said they loved the premise, they liked all the characters, where it was going, kind of like the moral of the story. And I thought, yes, this is great. I was like, whoa, I was so up high. And then later I met with the other editor who told me that this was horrible, that it set a really bad example, that this should never be published, that I should rewrite the whole thing. And I thought, "That's wait," like, I was so high, and now I'm like, "What?" And I think of at that moment, like, if I had just stayed there, I think I still would have been confident enough to move forward and, go back to that other editor and maybe say, "This person said this, what do you think?"
Mhm.
But in that afternoon during one of the writing workshops, that editor was there, and during part of the thing, used my work as an example of what not to do and kind of called me out saying, "This is not what you should do." And it just broke me. I was like, "Okay, this book stuff is not for me and
Yeah.
I'm done." And I put that away, never thought about it again. And it was after my memoir published, and my parents were like, "What are you gonna do now?" And I said, "Well, I do have this other story that I wrote way back in the day, but this one editor said no." And I got it out and I reread it to my parents, and they're like, "That's amazing. You should publish this." And that is the young adult novel that was published by
Mm.
W. Brown Publishing and won the gold medal.
Yeah.
So my story to anyone listening,
Yeah.
watching is that there will be people who will tell you no, emphatically no. But there are also people who be like, "Yeah, this is good. It has that." And I really encourage like to find that balance. We tend to really give into that negative and think like, "Oh yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I was thinking." But if we can hold on to those positive nuggets and learn from those and grow from those, we can grow as ourselves and we can also put that art into the world that can end up beautifying or helping somebody else.
I relate to that story in that being a perfectionist, and someone who liked to write and someone who was pretty good in grammar, and my mom was an English teacher.
Mm,
I always felt offended when anything was criticized of mine. And that's you. I mean, that's youth, right? I mean, you're proud of what you've written. But then as you get a little older, that chip gets a little larger. You're like, well, I've been doing this for a while. I'm comfortable. I think this is good. And then it can just come right back out at you and you can be criticized again. And so I think the fact that you continued on that journey, that you read the story to your parents and they gave you that positive feedback is really good. We need to look for someone in our lives who will provide positive feedback.
yeah, and my mom will tell me. She will be like, "Oh, Kimberly, I do not think that is right."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and there's constructive criticism, right? And then
Mhm.
there is just being mean or having your own opinion and you're not going to open up your mind to another view or another way a story can be told because they can be told in a lot of different ways.
True, very true.
I would love to know a little bit more about To Whom It May Concern, and I think that's so exciting that you won the award for young adult. That was in 24, right?
Yeah. I'm very basic. My ideas come pretty close either from my life or life next to me. And so it just sort of like kind of sparks those little things. And To Whom It May Concern started out as one of those questions that you kind of ask as an adopted child, which I am. I've known all my life that I was adopted. My parents told me about being like I can't not remember. So like it's so part of who I am. And part of my story, like on my gotcha day, they would tell me, "Today, we woke up early, and we went and we did this and we went to the lawyer's office and we filled out the forms and we got you there and then we took you here and we took you there." So I heard this all my life growing up, and I remember I was in first grade and one of my friends said, "Oh, we have to go to the hospital today to get my baby brother." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, is he sick? That's so sad." And they said, "No, babies come from hospitals." I said, "Oh no, babies come from lawyers." That was my knowing, that was what I knew.
Right.
And it was foreign to me that you could be adopted and not know it. And I didn't, because for me growing up, there was no stigma attached to it. It wasn't until I was older and understood that it wasn't always seen as a positive kind of a thing, which was really crazy to me. But I kind of learned from other people that I had a friend who didn't find out until she was 16, and she found out not from her parents, but from somebody else. And that really messed with her idea of who she was, her own self identity. So, to whom it may concern, that book came out of me thinking, what if I hadn't known all my life? What if I did just kind of find out of the blue from someone I didn't really like? How would that shape me? How would that change me? And so that's the story. My character, Logan, the night before he turns 13, learns he's been adopted, but he is so convinced now that if his parents lied about this, they must be lying. There must be other things. So he runs away to find out these answers, and along the way meets this cast of characters who teach him what is family, what is belonging, what might his biological mother been going through, what are some of these. And so they teach him these things so that as he goes, he learns about his own journey, but kind of those other things. So by the time we get to the end, he is a changed young man, and it doesn't have, well, I won't tell this ending,
Yeah,
but
don't tell us the ending.
you'll have to get it yourself. Um, but I really wanted it to be one of those books that you would kind of come away with maybe more questions, but also some answers. And since it is a YA book, I have questions in the back that parents can go through with their kids, that teachers can go through with their kids, to set it up like that. So there is that discussion.
Sure.
And I've gotten some really good feedback, which sometimes really just getting that review back, or even not a printer review, just somebody who says, I read your book. Well, actually, I'll tell you the example. A sweet lady always asks how you're doing, things like that. And so I had told her one day, I was like, oh, I wrote a book. She's like, oh, really? What's it about? And she turned out to be adopted as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I got her a copy of the book, and she's passed it to everybody in her family. They have said that, oh, now it makes sense why you feel this way, or it makes sense why so and so says this or acts this way. So that's been very validating and very
Yeah.
inspiring to me to hear that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our children is adopted, our fifth child. He knows he's adopted, and he came home when he was 4, and so he's always known as well. But he's still not at an age where he really asks many questions, and so he has the information, and he's seen the coming home stories and the videos and the pictures. I don't know if I'm anticipating or anxiety apating when the questions come. His birth mother is in Haiti. He's from Haiti. When he came home, it was hard for me to find books to talk about it in a way, even though yours is young adult and he was 4. It's still that opportunity, the questions that are provided, that I think that's wonderful. We used to read a book called I Promise I'll Find You. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's really sweet. And so we would use that as a way to say that you're always found. It's good for any of us to feel our sense of belonging and know that we belong.
Yeah. And I think too, like it comes, especially with kids, that sometimes I think, even myself, I, have, younger cousins, and, that have grown up, and sometimes they'll ask what feels like a massively deep question.
Mm,
And they really
yeah.
just want to know, is it red? Is it blue? So I think sometimes we give them more information than they wanted. And then they're like,
Mhm.
well, now I've got to really try to, figure this part out.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just really important, is just to kind of listen to what they're actually asking, and to give that information as age appropriate as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for my adoption is closed. So there's not a chance. Well, I guess technically now with all of the DNA testing, there is a chance.
Yeah. Well,
For the
yeah.
most part, my
Yeah.
DNA is only for with my doctor, my understanding. There is that sense of, I was always taught to respect my biological mother, to understand that it was a tough choice for her.
Mm,
And so I do. My parents have always been open as well, saying, if you want to go find her, we'll help you find her. And I think for when I was 16, I had like a 30 seconds of like, that could be really cool. And then you're like, I don't know. I know the people I got. I don't want to have
yeah.
so many new people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that for me because I've always fit. So, it's
Mhm.
again, it's different for every child. But for me, I think adoption is a wonderful, beautiful thing. So I encourage more of it.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a lot of
Well,
kids who are waiting.
oh, you told us about, the beginning of that journey with the story and how it was criticized in the beginning, and that you were able to launch it, to whom it may concern. Was that before you wrote Unbound Feet, your memoir, or was that after?
So the original part for To Whom It May Concern, I had been a journalist for like 15 years at the time, and I really was burnt out. There's just a lot that goes into it, and I thought I just need to do something else.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine had been writing books, and I thought maybe this is something that I would like to try. So I left the newspaper, started working for a greeting card company and writing at the same time. So I would say when this happened, the overall book was maybe 30 to 40% done. But once I heard that from that editor, I really just shoved it off to the side. And about a year and a half later, I ended up going to China. I was in China from 2006 to 2011, came home, wrote my memoir about 2015, 2016. That was published, and it only after that was published, and I felt like, because I got really good reviews back from
Mm,
that, then I thought, "Maybe that one editor was wrong."
yeah,
And then
maybe.
I went back, and that's when I pulled it out again.
Well, and being in China, how was that? I mean, that's outside the lines. I mean, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not something that you hear about every day. You were teaching English in China, in Central
Well, I
China,
I
or
taught
journalism?
journalism, American culture through film, and reading, and
Okay,
I taught it in English to English majors, translation majors, business English majors. So the
okay.
students I had were fluent in English.
Mhm.
Typically, by the time they came to me, the students I had were obviously they grew up speaking Mandarin. So they speak Mandarin, they'll be fluent in English, and they also have one other language. So they either speak French,
Okay.
Japanese, I think some of them were learning German. I don't think I had any expectations going over. I had no clue what to expect at all.
Yeah,
I just had felt part of it when I was with the paper and I was feeling this burnout. I wasn't sure what to do next. And when I was an editor and even as a reporter, I had built really good relationships with people. There were mentorships kind of set up that I would do. So people would tell me, "Oh, Kim, you should be a coach. You should be a teacher. You should." They said I just kind of felt like that's what I should do.
mm,
And I thought, that is ridiculous. Why would it do that? And then I just, I felt it like in my heart. I felt like that calling, and it was just kind of when the spirit tells you to do it, you got to do it. For me,
yeah,
because
yeah,
if you don't, then you're just even more miserable because then you're just fighting everything.
yeah, yeah.
So I remember when I was filling out the form, they did a thing at UC Davis where they were trying to get people to sign up for the program to go teach in China. I
Okay.
wrote on the card, I said, "You're probably looking for 25-year-old people. I am well beyond that. But if you think I'd fit, let me know." And they called me and I went through the process and ended up, I thought I would stay 1 year and I stayed 5.
Well, would you, be comfortable sharing something that was your favorite about the Chinese culture? Something maybe that you took home with you, or just
It's kind of hard like to think of just one specific thing.
sure.
I had a really wonderful time while I was
Yeah.
there. And I I miss the simplicity. I think that was the thing that when I came home was so hard. Because being in China, there are only so many options. You have two at the time. There were two
Mhm.
choices for phone carriers. You had A,
Sure.
you had B.
Yeah.
Like you have rice, you have noodles. Like things were very basic, and it was so beautiful just to be able to be in that and to experience like what I felt authentic community and authentic joy. And
Mm.
it really was so different. And when I came back to America, I was like, oh. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
the
the same. Um, I think that was, like, one of the harder things.
I've been to several poor countries, and when I came back, I had reverse culture shock.
You know?
I didn't want all the choices that I was given at the grocery store. I felt overwhelmed, and I just thought, "I would like 3 choices, please." I'll pick the one in the middle.
That's so tr I remember they're, like, all of these crazy fun things, and you're just like, "What the heck?" And it's just so loud and sounds I'd never heard before. Every horn is always honking, and my vision was just, like, overwhelmed with all of the signs, and I couldn't read anything. Then they're like, "Smell," so it was like every sense you had was on overload.
Mm.
That first 6 months was a lot of charades and just praying and hoping. Yeah, I would no clue how the money really worked. I
Yeah.
eventually learned my numbers, so I was okay. But by the time I got used to all of that, even though I understood some Chinese, most of it I didn't.
Mhm.
So a lot of it became white noise because I couldn't
Gotcha.
read what I was in front of me. I couldn't understand what I was hearing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I'd been there, got used to that. Coming home for Christmas, stepped off the plane in San Francisco, I could read everything, I could understand everything, and it was just like that wave kind of like hit you again. You're just like, "Oh, I need to stop for a second." It really was like
Yeah.
physically overwhelming to be able to just get all that together.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy. Turning what you don't understand or can't, determine, turning that into white noise. It probably, in a way, I mean, maybe somewhat disconcerting, but also comforting because you don't have to figure it all out because you
Yeah.
can't. But yeah, and then coming back to the US and being inundated with everything you do know, that takes a lot of processing. So you've got your new book coming out and it's a Bigfoot Homecoming. I've
Yes.
seen the cover. You had a cover reveal and it looks
Yeah.
great. Do you want to share about that? I mean, no spoilers, please, but just
I am not very clever about hiding things. It's very apparent that Bigfoot is in this book in the first chapter. So there again,
right.
no,
Okay.
the title says it,
No
the
giveaway.
first chapter says it, so it's not a spoiler. Um, but this one, my dad passed in 2022 after a battle with a rare neurological disease called progressive supranuclear palsy. And it's a horrible disease. That I guess the only real bright side is that while it takes away like your motor functions and things like that, his memories and everything like that were always intact. Like he knew who everybody was, he knew all those things. He just sadly couldn't physically do a lot of different things. But so he loved to tell stories. He loved to tell all these crazy things. And he grew up in a small town in Missouri called Lexington in the northwest corner near Kansas City. And when I was a kid, one of the stories he would tell my cousins and I all the time was how when he was little, he was walking home one night from his Cub Scout meeting, crossed the bridge, and this creature just came up out of the bushes, massive, hairy, dark, smelly, and it just freaked him out. And he threw his marbles at it and ran. Yeah, he said, I met the woolly bully. I know he exists. So the woolly bully and Bigfoot are the same thing. My dad just called him the one. And so, I mean, that story has always been there. The thing was, is that it wasn't until later that I realized that the distance he was walking was well over a mile. And he's about 10 in the dark at night by himself. And I was like, really kind of like, the 1950s were very different. He would tell this story, and I thought it was just him. Or, I've read a lot of Mark Twain, so I thought just everybody in Missouri just made up really big stories. But then I learned other people in Missouri like, "Oh, yeah, I've totally seen it. I've totally seen it." I was like, "What?" And all the stories my dad ever told, that one never changed. So, he was really prone to hyperbole. Sometimes he couldn't even finish the story because he would just start laughing so hard because he knew he was lying, he just couldn't finish. But his Bigfoot story never changed. So, whatever that was that he encountered that day was so burned into his brain that it never
Yeah.
changed. So, after he passed, my mom and I drove back to Lexington and they had this beautiful celebration of life for him. one of my cousins drove me around to, like, this is where I used to live and this is where I did, and so it was really fun just to kind of see all of those
Mhm.
places again. And while we were there, we stopped where his house used to be, and this big bright cardinal showed up, and it reminded my cousin of mine and told me when our grandparents passed that the cardinal is the bird that kind of signals that your loved ones are thinking about you. And so I was like, oh my gosh. But again, because it hadn't been that long since my dad passed, it was very overwhelming. All those stories came back. And driving home, they kind of ruminated all those things he had said. And that formed the nugget for a Bigfoot Homecoming.
Okay,
And so
okay,
I have drawn from stories that my dad shared to kind of tell the 1956 part of the story, but that
okay.
same character is living in the present. And so we go back and forth between the present and 1956 and what it is that draws him back to his hometown. What is it like to face those creatures that we saw as a child, real or imagined? And how do we deal with those as
Mm.
grown-ups? Has all those adventures, but at the same time, I think it has, like, a nice sweet message to it as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It officially releases September 9th, my dad's birthday.
Oh, oh, that's great.
The publisher, Julie Brand, I she did not know that at the time when she made that date, but I told her, I
Really?
said, "That'd be perfect. That's my dad's birthday."
I would like to know if you have, piece of advice, for someone who is a creative wanting to write a book, is feeling insecure, is feeling the, imposter syndrome, and or, is even being gaslighted because that happens, people are told, "No, you aren't a good writer. No, this isn't good work." Just it can be hard. It can be hard to make that type of step out, and you've not only done a memoir, which is obviously very personal, you've done the stories as well, the fiction stories, and yeah, so what type of advice would you give somebody who's thinking about it?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, it helps to have people around you that, like you said before earlier, that are encouraging, but that are also honest.
Mhm,
So I am very lucky. I have some beta readers that I will send them things like, okay, this is kind of where I'm going. Just read it. Tell me what you think. And they'll fire back and they'll let me know, yay, nay, what the heck. It's important to feel like, yes, I am a good writer, but it's also important to know that there's always room to improve and to get better.
yeah,
My advice really would be just write. It
mm,
sounds so simple. I mean, I have a hard time myself. My most successful times of writing have been when um I set myself a schedule. People will know about themselves what makes them stop and do something.
mm,
So for me, if I schedule something, I will do it because it's on my schedule to do it.
yeah,
You have to know what it is that compels you to get something done. Whatever that is, set that up. So
mhm,
for myself, when I sat down to write my memoir, I picked out 3 nights a week for 3 hours that I would specifically focus on my memoir. I was
okay,
either writing chapters or I was reading my journals. Anything that I did during that time was specifically focused on that, only that. That inner circle that you have, if you tell people, this is my goal by this date, I'd like to have this many chapters or this many words. You need to have somebody who's going to be like, okay, you're halfway to this date. How you doing? What is there? Is there any way I can help you? And that really kind of keeps your feet to the fire. But I think that that's the main thing is to know what motivates you and figure out how to work that motivation into something that continually propels you to sit down
mhm,
and write,
yeah,
because that's the
yeah.
hardest part.
I, take yoga, and we always say the hardest part is getting on the mat. Once you've made it to the mat, you've made it to your desk chair, you've done the hardest part.
Yep.
Theoretically. I mean,
Yeah.
it still takes some effort to go through the motions and to write, but you gotta get there first. I've just really enjoyed talking to you so
Thank
much.
you. It's been a pleasure.
It has. It's been really good. So, we're going to put together, a list, and we're going to have the categories of what are you reading, what are you listening to, and what are you watching. It's always nice to have a recommendation. So, let's start with what are you watching?
Man, this is where this like I I will admit I love just like reality shows. We don't have any of the fancy channels to stream things or to binge watch. I love the cooking shows, Project Runway. That's like my really guilty pleasure.
Yeah, yeah,
And then game shows. I love
yeah,
trivia, so my mom and I'll watch the different game shows together and try to beat them to the answer. And so that's really just kind of fun. Just I guess during like real TV time, then probably more like the maybe like cop dramas and lawyer dramas.
yeah.
I enjoy those.
So then, what are you listening to?
Anytime I'm listening, it's gonna be in the car, and it's either gonna
Okay.
be like NPR or The Message. But
Uh-huh.
probably one of my favorite artists to listen to is Lauren Daigle. I really enjoy her music, the lyrics I connect with. I also just appreciate the fact that as a female, she has a lower voice, and I have a lower voice.
Uh-huh.
So nice. I'm like her songs come on, I'm like, oh, I can totally rock with this song, and I'm not gonna, it's sort of like,
Yeah, yeah,
but you probably don't want to be in the car with me when something like, because I will just turn it up and just sing. Her music just really, I think, is very soothing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, I think it's an important message, her songs. So
yeah. Lauren Daigle.
yeah.
Yes, she's good. Okay, and then what are you reading?
So I just finished reading these amazing books. The author's name, KX Song, and I've known her since before she was who she is. She was actually one of the high school interns we had when I was at the newspaper in Davis. And her writing, even as a high schooler, was far and beyond even the college interns that we had. I read her first book that came out, which was based in Hong Kong. Her family is from China, so we also kind of bonded over that after I'd come back.
Yeah.
And now the new books she has, the first one is The Night Ends with Fire, and the second is The Dragon Wakes with Thunder. So it's a two-part book. And she looks at old Chinese stories. So this one is a retelling of Mulan, but
Oh,
this is
okay.
not for children. This is not a
Okay.
children's book. This is a
All right,
full-on
noted.
grown-up book.
Okay.
If you're a full-on grown-up and you enjoy um kind of like really intense fantasy. There is some romance in it, but just super, super strong characters. And I really enjoyed it because while I was living in China, I was there to teach them about Western writing, Western culture, and help them transition from going to university in China and coming to America and what would that university look like, things like that. So they were constantly reading American stories, and I was helping them process how that went. As I'd been there for a while, a couple of my students are like, hey, you're always telling us about American books. Let us teach you about Chinese books. I'm like, that's perfect. So they introduced me to some of the more popular Chinese stories, which I read and totally fell in love with. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue, a lot of romance going, and then the heroes of the march, they're just kind of like all these crazy guys. One guy gets drunk and goes and beats up a tiger. I mean, it's just you can't make this
Yeah.
stuff up. It's just really, really
Right.
fun.
Right.
So I was used to those kind of stories and that kind of level. The thing that I appreciate about her books is that she still draws from that Chinese heritage and that Chinese style, but she's been
Uh-huh.
able to mix in that Western with it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just get these really amazing stories.
I just loved getting to talk to you.
Oh, it's great. You
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day,
all right.
and
Let me know if
we
you
will
need
be in
anything.
touch. Okay, will do. Thanks, Kim.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us in the margins. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Our social media handle is at Podcasting in the Margins on Instagram and Facebook. And please stay connected. Like, follow, and share our podcast. What you do can help our podcast be successful. In the Margins is produced and edited by Dawn Donahue. Our guest liaison is Kim Orendor, and we're supported with gratitude by W Brand Publishing, where your story matters. Thanks for joining us.